Efficient meeting tonight, right?
I gotta dry off first.
Efficient, that means quick.
Yes.
It's all good.
We won't even have time to dry off because it's gonna go so quickly.
Brendan, dream on.
That's nice.
Our agenda looks perfect.
That's to me. I got my voting points.
Yeah, just wait till I bring up new business or
Yeah,
whatever.
sure.
Yes, Zach, are you ready to start?
Yeah, we are recording. Chair,
Yes, hi. Welcome everyone to the Manhattan Community Board 1 Transportation and Street Activity Permit Committee for March 2024. I'm Betty Kay. I'm chair of the committee. I'm joined by Jess Coleman, who's the co-chair, and Zach Balmer, who is the district manager. I want to thank everyone for coming out on this rainy March day. But hopefully, let's see what we can do with this. Since we have quorum, let's move forward and look at the first item. Next slide. Yeah, because we have 4 things on and the first is Washington Market School. So if Julia or Rebecca would like to come forward and do their presentation, that would be wonderful.
You can stand where you are.
Yeah, just speak to the owls.
these are the owls that pick up audio and video. So if you are close to them, if you want to sit, stand, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, that's fine.
You're good.
Great.
The Washington Market School is a preschool in Tribeca, and we are seeking a permit for our annual street party or street fair, which we have had on and off since 1986, but the last 3 years we've had them, or the last 2 years, certainly in recent years. June 1st, we've got an application with SAPO, early stages. Street closure 9 to 5. That's Duane Street between Greenwich and Hudson. Street fair itself will run from 11 to 3, and either side of that is set up and breakdown. It's run primarily by parent volunteers. One of whom is here, Rebecca. She's one of the leads on the committee. We invite the whole school community, alumni, and prospective parents too, and it's obviously open to the wider community. We don't shut the sidewalks, people can onto the street. We have a bounce house. In the past years, we've had a bounce house, ponies, some food from local restaurants. Every classroom sets up a table with crafts. So there's always a small stage, not much bigger than this table, and lower. We have a magician, a puppet show. Our music teacher puts on a little show. Yeah. Our committee is looking into vendors right now. Obviously, we get all the insurance and the permits that SAPO require, otherwise we don't go. And we pray for good weather. And that's our street fair. Any questions? And it's got a lot of history. And we have already spoken to the park, right?
Yes, Friends of Duane Park is already said that they're good with that date, and we talked about it 2 years prior and it's all been.
We hire a furniture, we set up, we break it all down by 5 and clean up. And we're not allowing any sand this year because that's a really heavy cleanup.
The school does also provide security for the event.
And cleaners. So yeah, we recruit extra of our regular security guards and cleaners on the day.
Thank you very much for coming out on this rainy day. I want to say that Washington Market School always does a great job. So we got all the information in advance. And I want to remind committee members, there were no changes proposed from last year where we had no complaints. But I want to open it if anyone has any questions. And I know we have Carrie here to defend Duane Park. So we don't have to worry about them and the cooperation because she'll speak up if she thinks the Washington Market School won't cooperate with her.
No, the
Any
school has
questions?
been in touch with Friends of Duane Park, and we have a very good relationship, so we're supportive of the event.
Yeah, Jess, would you like to take over? Because you can see people in the room.
And there's nothing. Call the question.
Second.
Great. Well, then, Jess, if you'd take over the vote. And here's the statement. It's pretty straightforward like last year. Just change the date.
Sounds good.
Okay, all those in favor? We'll do it by affirmation. All those opposed? Abstentions? Refusals? Passes. Great, thank you. Thank you very
Good luck.
Excited about it.
Sebastian.
Elephants and.
Hmm?
Elephant ride, if you want to see music.
Help
We're
and
gonna have that in-
preschool.
Show my age.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think we're allowed to do that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably good that you go away, but it was fun when you were.
Back again, Betty?
You were all stuck.
Yeah, is anyone in the room for the second item? Because they were going to be online, but
Here, 9/11 Memorial Museum Annual 5K. No.
No?
Anyone here?
okay, since the first item went so quickly, I can see why why don't we just switch around the agenda item numbers and,
Betty, I think that Casey is here.
Yeah.
well, if she is, then invite her to,
Okay, Casey, you can speak. Casey, can you hear us?
Hi, sorry about that.
Oh, there you are.
Everybody.
Great. We can hear you.
I have some slides to share if I'm able to share my screen, if that's helpful for everyone. I don't know if everyone in the room can see. But hold on one second.
yeah, Zach, can you transfer that?
I think I've got it. Can you all see this?
I can't see anything yet, but I'm leaving it to Zach to manage.
Okay, great.
So you can talk to him directly.
Okay. Zach, I had also emailed you the slides as well. So in the event that I can't share, I might just ask you to run through them quickly for me if you can.
Did you try hitting share at the bottom?
I did. I just did that a second ago, but I'll try again. Correct screen.
There you
Oh,
go.
can you see it now? Okay, great.
Yes.
Perfect. I'm gonna leave it not in presentation mode because I'm afraid that I have multiple monitors going, so then I might lose you guys. But first, I want to thank you guys for adding me to the agenda tonight. Betty, I thank you so much for the detailed instructions. It was very helpful. I'm not familiar with WebEx, so it was very clear. I was able to get on very easily, so thank you for that. My name's Casey Cunningham. I'm the Vice President of Events for the 9/11 Memorial. I'm here to talk about our annual 5K run walk. This is our 12th annual run walk. And first and foremost, we just want to thank you guys for all of the support over the last 12 years for this event, being our neighbors and our constituents and our stakeholders too. So thank you, thank you, thank you as always. Quickly, just to run through some details, the date of our event this year is Sunday, April 28th. We are trying our hardest to get us back up to a 5,000 participant number, which is our pre-pandemic number. Last year we had about 4,000 participants, so we're really trying to, still build back after the pandemic. Our start line is once again at Brookfield Place in the North Cove Marina, and our finish line is once again at Greenwich Street between Cortlandt Way and Day Street on the World Trade Center campus. And then after the finish line itself, we have our finish line experience, which takes place on Fulton Street between Greenwich Street and Church Street, also on the World Trade Center campus, and working with our partners at Port Authority there. Some quick timing for the event right here. 7 a.m. is when guests can start checking in if they haven't picked up their race bags already at Liberty and South End Avenue. 8 a.m. is when our speaking program begins at the North Cove Marina at Brookfield Place. And we try to keep it very, very brief. We know people have been outside in the cold and want to get running. So we try to keep it to 10 minutes tops. And then right at 8:10 at the conclusion of that program, we send all of the runners in one wave. And then about 10 minutes after all of the runners depart, we send the walkers all in one wave as well to follow them for safety. And then by 11 o'clock a.m., the entire event concludes and we're just breaking down in the various locations where we have setups. Any questions for me about general information so far before I move on? Okay, great.
Well, complete your presentation.
Thanks. So just to talk briefly about our start line at Brookfield Place, here's our site plan. It is the exact same site plan we had for 2022 and 2023. We found that this works really well for us and for our group, so we're not making any changes to the plan at this time. Obviously, if something changes, we will notify you guys, of course. But as of today, this is our site plan. Just to walk you through it really quickly. Number 1 here is where guests will check in. Numbers 2 and 3 is where they pick up their race bags and their t-shirts. 4 is just a general information tent. 5 over here is where our staging is located. 6 is where we'll have some food and beverage and most importantly, coffee for our people. 7 is just kind of a production tent for storage. And then 8, which for some reason is very tiny, is a secondary check-in location for just our corporate teams and our sponsors to make them feel a little special. And then they'll flow right in on a dedicated pathway here into this orange area, number 9, which is a corporate team lounge for those folks. Runners stage down here in this blue area on the lower level, and then walkers stage on the upper level facing our stage. And then they are cued to head to the start line. They're escorted there typically by FDNY probationary firefighters to our start arch right here where they depart on the route. Any questions about our start line site plan? Oh, okay, great. We'll move on to the route then. I've broken the route up into 2 different images to show you the first half of the route and then the second half, just because it wouldn't all fit on one slide. But our route here, you can see here at North Cove Marina is where we start. We head north and we go past the Hunger Memorial, and then we go on to North River Terrace. We do no park the west lane of River Terrace because our participants are on the sidewalk and NYPD helps us with that no parking. Most of those vehicles we've noticed are NYPD vehicles anyway, so we ask them to relay to their folks not to park there that morning. And then when our participants make the right onto Chambers Street, they are contained to the sidewalk there. And then it's right here at the corner of Chambers and West where the runners and walkers split along the route. So our runners will make the left onto the bike path to head north to Lake Street, while the walkers will remain on the Hudson River Park Trust Esplanade. We anticipate that the bike lane should not, we don't have any like hard closures for the bike lane right now. We might ask bikers to stop. We usually have course marshals there with handheld signs that say like event in progress, please pause, and we'll let them go in waves. But working with NYPD there as well, if we need to post any signage there, we're happy to create that. Should NYPD tell us that we need to do a firm closure there. But again, that's just for the runners. So I would anticipate, since it's the very first portion of our route, having them start at 8:10 by 8:30, 8:40 at the latest, probably. That is clear of runners. And then as the walkers depart, everything is contained to Hudson River Park Trust Esplanade. So a very minimal impact to the bike path there. As I said, runners and walkers will all turn around on Lake Street and they'll head back south down the Esplanade into Rockefeller Park and then back down into the North Cove Marina. We do have our first water stop at the base of Pier 25 on Hudson River Park Trust property. And we just did a walkthrough there and we saw that there's some new artwork up there, which is really great. So we're working with them to make sure that that water station can stay in that location. And then at Point Thank You, we usually put some extra folks there to cheer a little bit too, but no real setup there, just people. The second portion of the route here, it's a little bit blurry, I apologize for that, but focusing on when runners come back through the North Cove Marina, we have our second water station at the Brookfield Place volleyball courts, and that's not a change either. That's the same as it's been for a number of years now. So working with BPCA on that, of course. And then our runners will head south through the park all the way down And then this is where we had a change to last year's route. The community board was very generous and gave me a lot of leeway in 2022, telling me about the BPCA construction. So thank you again for that. But we had runners exit the park at Second Place and come down Battery Place instead of staying in the park as they had in the past. So this is a repeat of last year's route, no changes to it at this time. And so what we do is Battery Place is not a complete closure. We close the southbound lane only. So NYPD will put up bike rack down the middle of the street. The northbound lane remains operational. And we have our runners run in the southbound lane until they get towards the bottom. And then we push them past the construction back up onto the curb to the park until they get to Greenwich Street, where they'll cross to head north. The walkers do not walk in the street. So again, it's just the runners. Once the runners have kind of cleared the area, which we anticipate would be no later than 9:15, then NYPD will help us along with our course marshals for walkers to walk on the sidewalk instead of the road. So we anticipate that that road would be back open up to traffic no later than 9:15, 9:30. And then once our participants are kind of crossing Battery Place to head north on Greenwich, these are rolling street closures that NYPD and NYPD traffic really help us manage there. But those are rolling street closures, Greenwich Street and Battery Place to Greenwich Street and Cortlandt Way, and we'll have course marshals at each intersection as well along the route. Any questions on the first two portions of the route? No. Okay, great. So then just the last portion of the route is really our finish line. So all of our participants will head north on Greenwich Street with those rolling closures that I mentioned. And once they come back onto the World Trade Center campus, we partner with Port Authority Police and NYPD to ensure that everyone's safety. But our finish line, again, is located at Greenwich Street and Day Street on the campus, just next to the museum pavilion. Okay. The next slide that I have here is just once guests come through our finish line. Again, that's right around here where the number 1 is. We have, sorry about this. This is actually the wrong site plan. This is actually inverted. So all of these tents you see on the right are going to be on the left, and this fire lane is going to be on the right. We're just going to flip it so that our fire lanes stay consistent. Apologies. But we'll have, you know, an EMS tent, our timing tent, storage tents, water station here, and then our finish line experience really runs from Fulton Street, from Church to Greenwich. And so this is where we'll kind of have activities for participants that we've had in the past. We'll have a stage there. The West Point Band is returning after a year's hiatus, so we're very excited about that. But it's really a really nice event for our participants, and it's free and open to the public. It's not just our participants, so anyone can walk into it and enjoy it as well. That about does it for my presentation. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Casey. Actually, I have a couple of things to say before opening it up to everyone else. The first thing is, what kind of plan do you have for notifying people who live, work, have businesses along the route?
So typically what we've done is we've written letters to specific businesses that may see some sort of impact, and we'll share that with them. And we're happy to do that again this year if need be.
Great. Anything else that, well, the other thing I wanted to bring up is, as a committee, we have been looking at, of course, transportation. This is a very transportation-rich area in mass transit, especially with congestion pricing coming. It's also to your benefit, the people who think they have to drive to from the race. We're putting a move in to ask people in the future, not this year, on their website or any promotional information materials, include information about the transit stops. So things like, what's the closest subway line and stop to get in or out? What is the closest bus line and stops? What subway, what ferry stops, which of course in this case would be Battery Park City, if that would work for anyone, as well as anything with the city bike docks. So that hopefully just to kind of push people, if they have options available to them, they might be more likely to take those.
Yeah, we typically, as we get closer to the race, NYPD, we don't post our route just because of who we are and, the nature of all of that. We have been asked by, law enforcement to not post our route publicly. So even our participants don't really know it until they get on site. So it's a little surprise for them. But yes, we always include communications to our participants about should they need a parking garage, where to park, here's the, best trains to get you as close to the memorial and to the start line as possible. So we do provide all that information to our participants as well, but we'll be sure to include the ferries and the buses as well.
Well, and the city bike.
Yes.
Sucks. Because I noticed on your website, it just talks about, this is good news, strongly encourages the use of mass transit.
Yes.
Often it helps if there's specific information about a drop-off area and your starting line and your finish are close enough, someone could easily walk it. So something approximating the area would be certainly adequate.
Sure. We're happy to do that.
And I'm going to turn it over to Jess because you can see the hands in the room.
All right, yeah. What would be the hours that the battery tunnel is closed?
I'll have to confirm with them. I have not had a conversation with them yet, but they only close the I believe the exit from the tunnel that comes onto Greenwich Street because that impacts our route. So I don't believe that it's a full tunnel closure. It's just that one exit.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So just reconfirming, this is on a Sunday, right?
Yes. Sunday morning.
Then you mentioned potentially having signing. I would encourage signage along where you are impacting the bike lane because it's pretty busy on a Sunday morning. And so just want to be thoughtful of those people as well.
Yes, we've had signage in the past, so we can easily hit a reprint on that signage for them.
Yes.
There's a couple of questions that Tammy, the board chair, sent me. She couldn't make it, but she wanted to know the times that Battery Place will be closed.
So Battery Place, again, it's not a full closure. It's just the southbound lane from Second Place down to Greenwich, I believe, or Little West. It's just the southbound lane that's closed, and that would be from about probably 8 a.m. to 9:15.
Okay, and then similar to Betty's question, on notification, have you notified museums, residential buildings and businesses yet?
We have not done that yet, but as I said, we're happy to write letters and share those letters with any businesses and museums in the area.
And residents. I think that's the big part of it.
Sure, we can do that.
That's it for me.
Else? Yeah. That's all we got, Betty.
Call the question?
Well, if you want to go to the, just before that, if you just go to the next slide so they can know what they're voting on. What's proposed and see if people agree.
Sorry, do you need me to stop sharing?
I think so.
Yes.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yes, and a lot of these stipulations here are from past years, so I know these shouldn't be a challenge at all. But Manhattan Community Board 1 approves the run walk as long as they provide cyclists with information about where to go while the Greenway bike lane is closed to be used for your participants. We also appreciate the race organizers and request that flyers and communication be well in advance of the event. That staff setting up for the race be instructed and reminded to limit their noise, which isn't a huge problem because both the finish line and the starting line are not near residences at all. My building's probably the closest. And any speakers be angled away from residential buildings, which is easy given the location where they are. And that any day of the race, dedicated staff member be assigned to ensure that all stipulations are agreed upon. Is that a problem at all, Casey?
Oh, no, not at all. We'll take care of it.
This is what you've done, that's been done in the past, so.
Yes.
Great. So if you'd like to call a question and second it and
Call the
do that
question.
again.
Second.
Hey, I read the email. I came informed.
Then Jess, I'll turn it over to you.
We'll do it by acclamation again. All those opposed? Abstentions? Recusals? Good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you, Casey.
Thank you very much, guys. We appreciate all the support. And we hope you'll come.
Yes, I hope you have a great race.
All right. Thanks very much. Take care.
Take care.
Now the fun ones.
Are you presenting tonight?
I am. Oh. Betty, Tunnel and Towers here.
Excuse me?
Tunnel the Towers?
Yep. Yeah.
They're here.
I was not expecting them to be here. They're not on the agenda, so we can't do them tonight. We have to give at least 48 hours notice to the public. So I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but there's nothing we can really do about that. Correct, Zach?
Let's. It's up to you.
There's no notice to the public. I mean, I've been told this many times. Unless it's on
Yeah,
the
that's
agenda, at least 48 hours in advance.
But is this a controversial issue?
Not at all.
So maybe there might be some latitude in that?
No. Open meeting laws are open meeting laws, so unfortunately, no.
So I wonder, pardon me if I may ask, is it possible that I could present and you not call a question? So at least we can chat about it, like informational? Like public comment? Or we're certainly happy to come back.
When is it?
September.
September.
It's always the last Sunday in September, and there are no changes. And I was so excited to tell you about the wonderful things that we've done. I will tell you, we got 3,300 homeless veterans off the street in the past year because of your help. So I was all jazzed up to chat about that, but up to you, Betty. If you're not comfortable with public comment, we don't have to do that. We can come back.
We can't act on the request for the event in September because that takes a vote. I mean, if you want to make a brief comments about your organization, I won't stop you from doing that. It's just, you'd still have to come back before the event in September. And I apologize for that, but since you're not on the agenda, we really can't do anything.
Understood. I'm sorry too. I had gotten an email from Lucy. We switched some dates up a little bit, so I guess that's how we got confused. But if you don't mind, I'll just take a couple minutes since we're here. And since we're all friends, and since I have to talk to the owl, I'm gonna go to the end. Everybody can see me. So good evening. My name is Susan Starr, and I'm with my AVP, Stephanie Whitty, from events from the Tunnels to Towers Foundation. I am actually delighted to be here, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. For those of you who don't know the Tunnel to Towers story, we were started in memory of FDNY firefighter Stephen Siller, who was a young father of 5 who had just gotten off of work on September 11th and was on his way to play golf with his brothers when he heard on his scanner that the first plane had hit the towers. So with that, Stephen returned to Squad 1. The truck had already left, so he went to his locker, took his gear out of his locker, got in his personal vehicle, drove to the mouth of the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel to find that it was closed for security reasons. Stephen put his keys on the front seat of that truck, put 60 pounds of gear on his back, and ran through the tunnel to the towers, where he joined his brother firefighters and lost his life on September 11th, saving others. So that's why we're Tunnel to Towers, which is also why we run through the tunnel to the towers. The Siller family's philosophy, and one that is embraced by all of us who work at the foundation, is it is better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. So that's why the run was started. Our mission at the foundation is to honor the sacrifice of firefighter Stephen Siller, as well as to honor our military and first responders who continue to serve and make the supreme sacrifice of life and limb for our communities and for our country. I'd like to take a few minutes to update you on where we stand as a foundation, why it's important that I be here in this room with you, why it's important that we continue to ask for your support. To honor the lives lost on September 11th, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation established our In the Line of Duty program, which provides mortgage payoffs or mortgage-free homes to Gold Star and fallen first responder families with young children. We also build or renovate specially adapted smart homes, which are high-tech homes for catastrophically injured veterans and first responders. In 2023 alone, Tunnel to Towers delivered 200 of these mortgage-free homes. They're scattered across 37 states in our country. To date, that number is actually cumulatively over 1,000 mortgage-free homes, and Tunnel to Towers, with your continued support, has been able to commit over $500 million to our programs. In 2022, so last year we were talking about this, we were able to add to our programs, our Homeless Veterans Program, with the goal of eradicating veteran homelessness nationwide by providing a stable home and a wide range of services, including emotional, financial, and physical support. I'm proud to say by the end of the 2023 calendar year, that program was able to deliver 3,300 homes to homeless veterans and support services. So pretty remarkable. In November, Tunnel to Towers opened our first Veterans Village in Houston, Texas. The village is a 120-unit former hotel that has been converted into a combination of transitional and permanent housing. It also offers on-site services to residents. In addition, we have other locations in West Los Angeles, Riverside, California, and Phoenix, Arizona. By keeping administrative costs low, we are able to allocate 95.1 cents of every dollar to our programs. For 9 years in running, Tunnel to Towers has achieved the highest rating, 4 stars from Charity Navigator, which is the nation's largest and most utilized evaluator of charities. In addition, I just would like to remind everybody, I need to say it every year, Frank Siller is an uncompensated volunteer. Details of our run, just quickly, it's always the last Sunday in September, as per the City of New York. It always has been. That means this year it'll be Sunday, September 29th. When we do come back, I'll speak to public transportation, but we do pay for water taxi service so we can get people from Manhattan over to Brooklyn. I don't want to get too much into the details of it, but we have an 8:30 a.m. pre-wave start. 9:30 a.m. is our official start. The final wave comes through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel at 10:40. We have the QL carry. The QL carry should be open by 12:30, and the West Side Highway should be open by 2 p.m. It's the same footprint, same exact footprint that it's been for 27 years. Same timing. When I come back, maybe we'll even have the talent book, so I'll be able to tell you, have on the Bessie Street.
I'm working on it.
She's working on it. Street closures are exactly the same. I work with Nydia at Battery Park City and Patrick Murphy. In addition, NYPD to put that information out, to blast it on Twitter and to get it out to residents so everybody knows, but nothing has changed. I have a listing of the street closures. We can go through that next time, I guess. So in conclusion, I'd just like to say, as always, thank you for your consideration. Thank you for your continued support. On behalf of the Tunnel to Towers Foundation and our program recipients, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude for your gracious support and generosity. With your help together, we are truly accomplishing great things. And in the words of St. Francis of Assisi, brothers and sisters, while we are here, let us do good. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I do want to thank you, and we'll see what we can do to make things easier. You can pick the month you want to come back to make the formal presentation. But in fact, it is phenomenal what growth there has been with your organization and just what kind of incredible work they're doing. So thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. We appreciate your support. We know it's a couple of very exciting hours for us in your community. And I look forward to coming back with a little bit more information and to talking to you guys when we're a little bit closer to the event. So thanks for letting me speak, Betty. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. It is such a valued event in this community. So thank you.
Jess, can I just ask, this unrelated, I mean, I'm in full support of this.
Sure.
About a year ago, due to a family situation, I had an electric hospital bed for the home that I was looking to donate. I called up every veterans organization in this the local, the tri-state area, the country, even international, and nobody would take a fully electric hospital bed that could have been a lifesaver for some veteran or anybody, as opposed to the crank one, you know, somebody that gets out of like a subacute rehab. So since you're dealing with these situations where you're giving like Gold Star Families homes, and there could be an elderly person that it could, is that something that in the, if, I don't have it now, it's,
But this, so you know how to get me?
no, but is that something that you know, or that you would accept? Because there's been no agencies, and I know some other people that wanted to donate and pay it forward, and it was really heartbreaking that we had to just throw it out when we, you know, instead of, except one organization in Yonkers that would only take it if you paid for the shipping to them, where they're getting like an $8,000 hospital bed that insurance paid for, but they want you to pay $500 for the delivery. So is that, you know, if that's something that your organization might consider in the future? And like, I'm out of that now, but it was just something that's always stuck with me.
Yes, actually, that's not the first time that this has come up. So sometimes people install a lift inside the house. So I know that we've
Right.
taken things like that because it is
But
heartbreaking.
the hospital bed like that, you know, if with the insurance to pay for something that many people without good insurance can't afford, and it's, the electric one is super heavy that it can't just be like, it needs like professional movers and a truck. So it would involve hundreds of dollars, but you guys would be getting a,
Now you know how to call me.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wish I would have met you a year and a half ago.
Next up.
Thanks. So move on to agenda item number 3. See, Brendan, you're getting sort of your wish. This legislation was introduced, is numbered 0024. It was introduced in 2024. You'll see another number because this bill was reintroduced in 2024. It was originally introduced last year. So there's a different number for it for 2023, but it's the same exact bill.
Did we already do a resolution on this? Is that what you mean?
Excuse me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I got the answer.
Okay, this is actually what would happen to the administrative code, which is where they put the bill into the way it's handled within city government. And this would be the easiest way probably to see what what the law would do. If it's underlined, it's a change, but anyway, this, if you go back, please, no push cart shall be placed on any sidewalk unless the sidewalk is at least 12 feet clear pedestrian path. That's not defined, to be measured by the boundary of the private property to any obstruction in the sidewalk. So that's how you measure that 12 feet. If there are no obstructions, then it's to the curb. But in no event shall any pushcart be placed on a sidewalk other than that which abuts the curb, is the existing legislation. The change is the underlined. All push carts on the sidewalk must be placed within 2 feet of the curb. So the change here is simply moving from the curb itself to 2 feet. But it adds, if an obstruction prevents such placement, push carts may be placed as close as possible to the obstruction. That's the law. And I want to add that since, yes, you go to the next one. Some idea of things, what obstructions are, because at first you go, what is an obstruction? First of all, it is not defined in the law, but these are things that people have thrown forward as would be considered obstructions on the sidewalk. Benches as street furniture, trees with and without tree guards, security devices like bollards, waste bins of garbage, DOT package delivery lockers, chargers for e-vehicles and e-bike batteries, which we do not have in our district yet. Bus stop signs and shelters, city bike stations when they're on the sidewalk, the 5G poles, which also once they're in the district, scaffolding, news racks. So a large variety of things would be considered obstructions. Or could be, it's not defined in the law. testimony and support. I'm gonna have Jess, you run, because you can see the room, so. There's something you want to bring your attention to, please do that.
Hey, Betty, so in that list of obstructions, if there's a bike rack, it would be preferable if they don't put the cart right up next to it, because then you can't park on the bike rack. Is that addressed somewhere? Did I miss
Well,
that?
yes, that is. That's one of the objections.
That's one of the
Right.
problems.
Right, okay.
You're right, it's the
Yeah.
same
This
thing
is-
with
this
the
is to get you
trees, right?
attuned
Putting a
to
push
what they
cart-
are.
Right,
Yep.
putting a push cart right up against a tree is
Okay.
bad for the tree, because you've got
Betty,
those.
I'm just showing them this because this, I think, illustrates the issue.
Okay, so this is gonna happen in the future. I just got to it a little.
Well,
bit.
that's what they're
Okay.
saying. This is what the law would open up.
Oh.
But you still need to have clear path in the law. That photo takes away your clear path.
So it'd be
I don't
like
think that's accurate.
in the furnishing zone?
The law does not address anything as a furnishing zone specifically, but they talk about obstacles, which the DOT considers obstacles should be in the furnishing zone. That should define the furnishing zone. On the other hand, there are many things that would be obstacles, such as now, some of the trash bins can be up against the building. Some of the things such as scaffolding obviously is against the building as well as out along the curb. There are a number of things that sidewalk cafes aren't considered obstacles, but they certainly take up space and they're certainly by the building. So they would be considered this buying for the same pedestrian space. But yeah, Mohammed, I see your hand and I'm going to have you speak, which is why I wanted to get through this and then have Mohammed Atia is from Street Vendors Project, and I want to make sure that their voice is heard too. So if, Zach, if you'd like to move him to a panelist, that will make it easier for him to be able to unmute himself to speak. Because I was going to ask him to speak to the support to see what he had to add or clarify. Anyway.
Yeah, Mohammed, you can go ahead, unmute yourself.
Right. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you all for allowing me to speak. I'm going to make this very short, but I'm Mohammed Atiyah. I work with the Street Vendor Project. And of course, we work closely with the City Council on this bill in particular, but other bills as well. I want to clarify two things about the bill or what the bill will do. The first piece about the 2 feet, just to clarify, the admin code, the way it exists right now, which has been the same since the 70s, that requires vendors to be on the area that abuts the curb. The interpretation that the court, which is in this case oath, is given the vendors is that the vending cart or table has to be 1.5 feet from the curb. So that's their definition of what it means to be on the area that abuts the curb. So what the bill will do is that it will increase that space from 1.5 feet to 2 feet. So making 6 inches change. And you may wonder what the 6 inches would actually do. Well, it will protect the vendor in a way, and instead of being right by the edge of the sidewalk, in the sense that, if they step out of the cart or they have to operate behind the cart or the table, they can be very close to the curb lane, which could be, expose them to incoming traffic, like a bus coming, a bike, it's like a very dangerous situation for the vendors. So probably giving that little bit of a buffer space from the edge of the sidewalk will probably make the vendors feel safer. So that's the first piece about the 2 feet. They are not eliminating the curb rule. They are just clarifying that instead of 18 inches, it is 2 feet. The other piece, which is, I know it is very vague, which sadly we didn't get to work council enough to identify what the obstructions are. But of course, the intention of the bill is not to allow vendors to set up in front of all these obstructions that were mentioned, right? It does make a lot of sense for specific obstructions and specific furniture on the sidewalk to be not obstructed by a vendor or by anything else. We're looking at, like bike racks, benches, anything that the public can use and utilize. So we are working now with the council to actually identify which obstructions vendors can set up in front of. And I want to be very honest and very straightforward here with you all about these obstructions. Some of these obstructions have been used as a tool to actually displace the vendors from legal vending locations. And it's a really bigger conversation. We can send you all like a lot of slides and materials on the vending rules and siting rules, but it's very complicated to find a legal vending location. So many streets are off limits. The minimal requirement, which was read earlier in the bill, that a vendor cannot set up their business on any sidewalk unless it is 12 feet wide or has 12 feet clear pedestrian way. This is less than 20% of our public sidewalks. According to NYC data, more than 80% of our sidewalks are narrower actually than 12 feet. So we're looking at very limited spaces here. Besides all of that, vendors have to be very close to the curb, as you're seeing now, whether it's 18 inches or 2 feet. They have to be 20 feet away from every building entrance. They have to be 10 feet away from the crosswalk, subway entrance, driveways. They cannot be on a bus stop, taxi stand, no standing zone adjacent to a hospital. The restrictions go on and on. I don't want to take more space in that meeting, but it's difficult. Now, what happens is, and I think a couple of years ago, we were here before this committee discussing that issue with the building 140 Broadway. If folks remember back in the days, it was very explicit that the building had a plan to place dozens of planters and benches exactly where the vendors operate, to displace them because they like the sidewalk to be wide open and vendor free. We had a conversation with you. We got the vendors to come before you and testify and share that this will be detrimental to their businesses. And thankfully, you all understood the issue and supported the vendors and rejected the plan of the building. Otherwise, these families would have been out of business now and probably, you know, like washing dishes or like doing something just like life going. What I'm trying to say is that some real estate owners, some organizations, some individuals would spend a lot of money trying to displace the vendors by placing trees, bollards intentionally where the vendors operate to push them off the curb. And then when the vendor sets up in front of these obstructions, you will come into a situation where they say, hey, you are very far away from the curb. You are more than 18 inches that is required. Your vending location is illegal and you have to go. And they call the police and the police hammer them with fines. So what we're trying to do here, we want to make sure that in certain sidewalks where it is very wide, where you have enough safe space in front of the obstruction, if a vendor cannot be as close as possible to the curb, which is the 1.5 feet or 2 feet, they can be set up in front of the obstruction. For clarification, some vendors, not a big number, but some vendors all over Manhattan, they already operate in front of obstructions, mainly the bollards. So if you go to Times Square, the security bollards are pretty much around every single building. You have many vendors operating in Times Square in front of these bollards. They were never displaced. They rarely face some fines that are unnecessary by some enforcement agencies or NYPD, who would stop by and say, you are more than 18 inches to the curb, and they give them a ticket. But thankfully, folks are there protected because the business community, the business improvement district there, and everyone knows that vendors are a part of the community in Times Square, and they are not doing this to intentionally displace them. So this is very, very good example to see how it actually works. You probably have seen the New York Post article that came out a couple of weeks ago with a lot of misleading information and a lot of nonsense pictures showing you how absurd this bill might be. And if you look closely at the picture, you will know that this picture is impossible. Thank you for pulling it up. This picture is impossible because in front of this tree, first off, you don't have 12 feet. That's number one. Number two, the tree is not taking the whole sidewalk, so you can actually set up your cart near the curb next to the tree. Number three, even if the sidewalk was 12 feet wide or wider, you have a door right there. You have a building entrance, whether it's the financial center or a bank or whatnot. You need to keep 20 feet away from that. So this picture right there is impossible. But of course, the organization that created the picture, which is the Hudson Yards Hell's Kitchen Alliance, will not show you the truth.
Thank you. Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So your understanding here and what you're advocating for is that you can only set up in front of an obstruction where there is still a clear path, whether 8 or 12 feet. Is that correct?
Correct. You have to have a clear pathway between the obstruction and the property line.
Okay.
Between the vendor cart or between the obstruction?
Between the obstruction.
So if the cart is in front of the obstruction and the cart takes up 3 or 4 feet, you've now made the clear path of 12 into a clear path of 9, am I right?
That's correct.
So this isn't really wrong, that you could set up within the clear path, right?
Mhm.
Taking away the front door. And then the other thing that we have not thrown in here is all the customers that are waiting to get to that cart.
Right.
Because I have a very clear spot in my head, and you're probably thinking of it as well, but BNY Mellon on Greenwich,
Yeah.
we're all talking about adding bollards. Well, they're forced to add bollards there. There are already carts there, and now they're gonna move in front of those bollards. They have a line. It's gonna take away many, many feet from pedestrians.
There's planners there, right?
Yeah, there's plans there now.
I hate to put you on the spot, so I usually do. But are you aware of this, Bill, and the rules here?
So we're aware of the bill, but I'm actually not allowed to comment on pending legislation.
Okay.
Jess, if you could move along, there's a lot of this information is going to be covered later versus just speculating.
Okay.
You can let Mr. Adia finish what he wants to say because he's the support side, and I think it's important to hear that.
I think we got there.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to add, Mohammed, quickly?
No, I think there is still a lot of like clarification to be made with the bill language itself. But if folks are interested, we can send you all slides that show you a lot of the pictures of what the bill will do and what the bill will not do, if that would be helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thank you for doing that. I'm a little bit limited on doing, I'm a little conflicted about doing that only because, as you said, I agree, this bill would need some major clarification made. And so who knows what that clarification would be, so it would affect what the pictures are.
Betty, I think Cody just has a quick question.
I just have a quick question, I should know this, I'm sure, but like sidewalks in New York City, how, I mean, are they all, they're not all 12. So what are the standard sizes? And aren't they changing? Isn't that fluid? Because we're seeing like in Hell's Kitchen, we're seeing like entire lanes of traffic turned into pedestrian walkways. And so, you know, I mean, that could change this whole.
Well, he said that 80% are not wide enough, so they don't have vendors.
Right.
Also, we know that we're downtown in this area. Our sidewalks aren't going to dramatically change because we ain't got anywhere to go.
Yeah.
So,
Let's let Betty get through it because she does have some slides on
okay.
that question too. So. Betty, back to you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mohammed. If we go back to, I don't know what we skipped to get to this picture, so if I could just take a look at that. Okay, Post, you can go back to that one. Didn't miss anything. Oh, I'm sorry, the opposed point of view. The things that have been mentioned, because I read all these hundreds of pages of testimony that were given. So these aren't my thoughts. These are taken from testimony given to City Council about this particular bill, which, as you can see, in 2023, it was labeled 1253. Now it's 0024. Anyway, the sidewalk space is already too crowded by obstacles. The bill does not account for cafe seating, scaffolding, waste bins, delivery package lockers that are near the building, or that space that is needed to be able to use the obstacles, such as the street furniture, the bus stops, etc. The bill does not specify that a clear pedestrian path should be level and smooth, which comes up with one of my examples as being the problem. There's no mechanism for citing of vendors, so it gives no solutions. It just doesn't give any. The enforcement is being done by the sanitation department. And as was already pointed out, actually, they say it's 18 inches. So although the legislation, the administrative code right now says 12, says abutting, Mohammed is perfectly correct that sanitation says it is 18 inches, and that is what is enforced at this point. So we're only talking about 6 inches when we talk about the distance from the curb. It's the portion about citing near an obstacle that is, I think, is going to be the more contentious one. Anyway, the enforcement, it would be burdensome and slow in real time. If you go back, again, that's the Brooklyn Bridge, which is different anyhow. So it's not it's not a sidewalk. Go back, please. Thank you. 311, there have been many 311 complaints, even within having the 12-foot rule, and allowing vending close to obstacles adds the problem of limiting pedestrian space because it's still in front. So if we go on to the next one, that's the various testimony that came. Again, this is the Brooklyn Bridge. So while there's all kinds of crazy things, this is not particularly appropriate for this particular piece of legislation because it's not a sidewalk. Next. Yeah, you can go on from this. I think we've looked at this one.
We should probably say who did that
Yeah.
instead of just showing the middle.
And yeah, this is what Mohammed was referring to. In fact, this is from Sidewalk Widths. This came out during COVID because they were looking from that perspective for how people could socially distance. But nevertheless, these are sidewalk widths that were taken from open data in New York City that you can find on this particular website. If you notice, the greens to blues are the ones that are over 12, the 12 foot or wider. Everything that is red to yellow wouldn't qualify anyway, because even the sidewalk from the very edge to the building is less than 12 feet wide anyway. So a lot of our district wouldn't apply, but we know sometimes they go there anyway. But that's a whole nother issue. So you can see our district and see where it even would be possible for the width if the whole sidewalk was usable. Next. Yeah, if you go to the draft resolution, it'll be easier for more specifics. Because I looked at all these testimonies, and then you can see who said what and why. So Zach, if you don't mind sharing the draft, that will actually be quicker. Yeah, 0024. As big as possible for my terrible eyes. Thanks. The first point I want to get some feedback from people on is, because there are two portions of it. One, like I said, is about the obstacles. The other is about the distance from the curb. What do people think about what this bill would do in terms of 18 inches versus abutting? Or 2 foot versus 18 inch, which is the enforcement, but it would change what's written in the administrative code, which is abut.
Yeah, I'll just say, I think that part of it is totally fine. I think the only issue here is the obstructions, but I think that 16 or 1.5 foot to 2 foot is totally fine. It's the obstructions, that's the problem.
Yeah, does everyone generally agree with that? Because you can see I put it as a second whereas.
Just to clarify, we're talking about where the siding has to be abutting the curb. The only change that I think we're maybe reaching consensus on is the change from 18 inches to 24 inches is not problematic, but they should be abutting the curb.
Just for safety for the vendor, correct? I agree.
Right. And we already know that abutting the curb, as Mohammed pointed out, Oath has already interpreted it as 18 inches. So the reality, and Department of Sanitation, who is the enforcement agency for this, has also said 18 inches. So we're really just going from 18 inches to 24 inches, although the law
It's only 6 inches.
administrative code says there's a but. Yes.
I mean, I will throw out there just the opposition to it. It's not the hill going diagonal because it's 6 inches, but like you give an inch and people will take them out. And I think enforcement is always an issue. So that's why that's like my only hesitation. But again, this is not the hill. I think the hill is the obstructions.
Right. But I think whether, just to respectfully your point, whether it's 18 inches or 24 inches, enforcement is going to be.
And they're gonna argue more that they're like, oh, I'm within and so, but again.
Sure.
Okay, so people generally agree with this whereas statement. Because I wanted to make it clear what the position was on this less contentious portion of this piece of legislation, which is the distance from the curb. Okay, then the changes really that are proposed would allow vendors to operate in front of obstructions. And again, I have it in quotes because it's not defined, which is one of the problems with the bill. Also, the legislation defines clear pedestrian path as being measured from the boundary of the private property to any obstruction or the edge of the sidewalk if there are no obstructions. However, there are lots of things near the building, such as sidewalk cafes, scaffolding, that are not included or mentioned in the bill, and they don't really count as obstacles because those are taken as things that are near the curb. So, that's a problem. Does anyone have a problem with that?
I'm sorry. Can you clarify a little what we're arguing for or against on that one?
The issue here is that.
Is that misleading or not?
What misleading?
What misleading? I'm sorry. It's hard for me to read everything clearly from this distance.
Yeah, then don't worry about it. It'll come up with a broader discussion then.
It's
My
not
fault.
Which were?
It's basically what,
Explain just.
yeah, it's basically what we've been saying, that it doesn't account for whether or not the vendor can be within the clear path or not.
Okay.
It's being measured
Okay.
once it's there.
Right, because part of that 12 feet are being taken up in many spaces by cafe seating.
Yeah.
Or
Right, so
package
it's a question-
lockers, things that are put up against the building. So the building line isn't real, there are obstructions on that side too, and they're not accounted for in this bill.
Right, so you can't just measure from the fascia of the building
Right.
to the thing. You have to measure, or we're advocating for measuring from the sidewalk cafe. You have to take the sidewalk cafe into account and still ensure the 12-foot clear path.
Well, I'm gonna let Mohammed speak in a moment, but the point is, it's not accounted for in the bill versus
Right.
suggesting what they do about it.
There's so many sidewalk cafes that don't even abide by their own 8-foot rule to the.
But yeah, let's see what Mohammed has to say.
Yeah, let me just ask Kate a question, and if you can't answer, just say F off. Is the requirement, so we're like saying that it's not in here, is the requirement elsewhere in the law such that if this passed, there would still be an existing requirement elsewhere in the law that there is a 12-foot or whatever it is clear path? Do you know the answer to that?
I do not, sorry.
Okay, yeah.
No, and I can also say that with outside dining, it's 8 foot. It's not 12 foot.
Right.
The clear path that goes with cafe dining.
If there was a clarifier, shouldn't they have put that in the legislation or link to it?
Well, I mean, if the requirement is elsewhere, then it's the requirement, right? Then like it has to. But I don't know if it's elsewhere. It doesn't mean you can't mention it here, just be repetitive.
It would seem with common sense, and this might just be outside the law, that there's enough streets that if there's an obstruction, for it to be on the side instead of in front, or like an adjacent, like kind of almost like just working together. I don't know how how you could, you're a lawyer, how you could word that, but it just seems that there's enough street and room space where something doesn't have to be in front of the obstruction, where it could be adjacent to it, because there's so many times, like there'll be the sidewalk cafe, and there might be technically 8 feet, but maybe five of the feet is subway grading. So, it's not like really, for certain people that have mobility issues, so it's a lot of gray stuff in there.
But that's partially, I think that's partially what we push it back against. It's like they need to clarify more and take those things into consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what Mohammed has to say for the advocate side.
Yeah, just like one clarifying piece here, that the 12-foot clearance is the bare minimum which is required, not just for the width of the sidewalk, but to be measured from the building line or the wall or the property line to the curb or to any obstruction on the sidewalk. And I think you mentioned earlier, like an example of like when you have a sidewalk and there is scaffolding there. Let's imagine a scenario where you have a sidewalk that is barely 12 foot and it's barely available for a vendor to set up. Once you have scaffolding there, that makes the pathway narrower than 12 feet, probably 11 or 10. That makes this sidewalk off limits to street vendors. And that is mentioned in the admin code. I can send you the exact code title and like subtitles and sections if you're interested in that, but it will take me some time.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We're gonna just deal with this piece of legislation. And the problem is it's inconsistent with a lot of other things in the city.
Are we allowed to say we support, like we support everything and then, but except for like that last whereas we have, where we're giving like a recommendations, is that something where it has to?
Why don't we, Mitch, why don't we get to the end and see what
Okay.
the therefore be it resolved is. Anyway, we can go to the next page because we're done with this whereas. We're moving along. Yeah, and this is the problem, the few things where they do define things. It does state that a push cart shall be placed on any sidewalk unless it's at least 12 feet clear path. On the other hand, it also talks about the boundary of any private property to the obstruction of the sidewalk, which means when you put it together, all the barriers that are up against the building don't have to count within that 12 feet. That's a problem. In 2023, the Downtown Alliance, this was in their testimony, which serves the area south of the Brooklyn Bridge, east of West Street, reported over 2,900 food and general vending violations to 311. So that's just in 1 year. And this was, they didn't follow the 12-foot clear path, which points to the problem with enforcement. Also that neither of the two vendor siting changes that are here, the distance from the curb, or especially the obstructions, were actually there was a 2012, the Street Vendor Advisory Board report came out in May of 2022, and that was not one of their recommendations. Testimony given to City Council by street vendors, I read all these pages, and their advocates that supported it really mentioned the distance from the curb for safety reasons, no question, that was mentioned consistently. But really no one supported going in front or near obstructions. Just kind of curious that it was missing. So they were responding to this piece of legislation. And Mohammed, I'll get to you in a moment. Allowing carts to be placed as close as possible to an obstruction would improve vendor safety, but it doesn't really improve vendor safety because you're not near the street at this point. So the question then is, it seems to be more for getting more space for vendors than it has to do with it's a safety issue. Yeah, Carrie, I gave a plug here for your Trees for Tribeca. I mean, these things have missions and they're not really meant to put obstructions in front of vending carts.
Thank you.
Sidewalk widths, yeah. For the sidewalk width, it does point out that only 19.4% would be 12 foot wide. But I took an example in this last whereas, I think it's one of the last ones, about VC Street between Goldman Alley. Whoops, I can't read it now. Oh, sorry. Between Goldman Alley and North End Avenue. And this is kind of interesting because it is 17.3 feet wide according to the online. But however, the sidewalk cafes line that whole block. And they have uneven cobblestone furnishing zone. For those who are familiar with Battery Park City, they use that a lot. And it's a pretty wide swath of the sidewalk. So it ends up leaving less than 5 feet for the pedestrians. If you go down a little bit, finish that one. Sorry. It's unobstructed, level, and smooth pedestrian path, terms that are not used in the legislation either for pedestrian path, that it has to be level and smooth. And sometimes there are food carts that set up there. And then the pedestrians with strollers, wheelchairs, and delivery carts have to go single file to get between. It's really crazy. So it can be very misleading when you look at the width if you don't factor in everything that's on that sidewalk competing for that space. And the unevenness of the sidewalk that makes it unusable for comfortable walking. Now, if Mohammed would like to speak, it'd be helpful to hear.
Yeah, the last thing I just want to clarify again is that if there are certain sidewalks that has, like narrower than 12 feet of clear pedestrian pathway, vending should not take place there. That is the admin code. It could be like a matter of enforcement. As far as we know and concerned, that is something we have testified on. It is one, for the safety of the vendors to give that 6-inch extra away from the curb, but also like allowing the vendors to set up in front of certain obstructions, which again, we agree with you that we should work on a better language, is something that is a top priority. And we had several vendors along with our staff actually testifying on the council's hearing to talk about the displacement that have been taking place in several areas across the city of vendors using these tools, obstructions, bollards, trees, you name it. And we understand that in many cases it is not intentional, but in certain cases it is very, very intentional. And that creates a lot of problems for the vendors who are already struggling to comply with the siting rules that are very complicated.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to remind committee members that there is a kind of a collection of bills that are going through but related to vendors. Some of them, and I only picked out these two because they're related to transportation in a way, otherwise they're not appropriate for our committee within CB1 to look at. But some of them, such as going from being criminal to civil offense when they are get fined, makes a lot of sense. And I can see why the vendors project is working on trying to change that. We're only going to talk about this bill, and I think the issue is there's no question. It needs a lot of work on
But it's
definitions.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's shocking.
I like this last whereas, honestly, which is around the fact that like our sidewalks are supposed to be public space and not for private.
I did too.
So,
Yes, although private use would be bike racks as well.
I'm saying, you're looking at the wrong person. 'Cause-
Would it?
I mean, I ride a bicycle too, but like,
Big bike?
if we consider parking.
Oh, no, I mean,
cars
I
on
don't
the
support it.
street- Oh, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, for everybody to know that.
No, you're right, the bike racks are, cars park on streets and that's public space.
Yeah,
And so
and bike racks.
bike racks
also
are public
public
space as well.
So.
And whoa.
service to the public.
Yeah.
But we got some people with hands. Rosa, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you very much. I wonder because I live in FIDA and I work around the Brooklyn Bridge, and there are obviously a lot of streets, especially in FIDA, they're incredibly narrow. And several of them where, whether it be from scaffolding or from repeated obstructions, the actual width of usable passable space is less than 3 feet, and in some cases less than 2 feet, honestly, and which is just crazy. And so I'm wondering if rather than saying the gazillion things that do count or don't count as obstructions, how about just defining like that there has to be a clear path and it has to be some usable width that allows for people to pass each other, to be able to use wheelchairs and strollers, to be able to safely utilize the sidewalk for its primary purpose, which is to get people moving. And then, leftover space for, trees, vending, whatever we need, bicycle racks, I don't know what, but there has to be a bare minimum of utility to the sidewalk, right? So people can pass on it, right? It seems insane that we're basically saying, oh, this might count, this might not count. In the end, the usable space is like negligible and it's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, Rosette, I agree, and I was thinking that, or therefore be it resolved for this could be actually that we support this so long as they include language to the effect of so long as X amount of clear path is maintained. The problem is I don't know what that number is, and I don't know what the existing requirements are and how this would affect it. So, but I agree with you. I mean, I think we could support this legislation and just say
To see that therefore.
so long as a certain clear path is maintained.
Sounds good to me.
And that, yeah, go ahead.
No, to me, it sounds like, and what Mohammed is saying is you need 12 feet of clear path to set up vending currently, and scaffolding counts against that 12 feet. So if you have exactly 12 feet and you have scaffold that comes in 1 foot, then you can no longer vend at that location. And an obstruction like a tree pit, if that were there, you would still need 12 feet to the building or the closest obstruction. So it would be similar in that sense. You would still need that 12 feet.
So with the scaffolding thing, because, sorry, because there's literally somebody outside my building, which I'm not opposed to per se, but he literally parks in between the two racks. And so with what you're saying, he's within the law, and I'm not trying to look it up or swear or like do anything about it because I don't know law well enough, but like there's probably plenty of opportunities to do that. So then again, scaffolding, like you can get around the scaffolding. And again, we are talking about the carts in and of themselves, but we haven't, like, I wanted to be taken into consideration the people that are supporting that cart. So like, the cart may give you 12 feet, but then I just saw another 4 feet because there's a line of people that are like right there. I also don't love the example that he gave that it was like, well, they're doing this in Times Square and so it's great. Never compare us to Times Square, Muhammad, just as an example, but like, because we don't want to be that, we don't want to be anything close to that. So like, while it might work for that area, I don't want to replicate that in any area downtown. And that might be a little NIMBYism, so I apologize, but like.
We don't have the space for it.
We don't.
I agree with you 100%. We're not Times Square. We don't want to be Times Square.
12 feet is existing.
That's not
law,
NIMBYism.
to be clear.
Right.
Right.
12 feet is existing law.
Right, that's why
We don't want characters coming up and saying,
Like if you want more than 12 feet, that's something different.
I just feel like we are inching away at the little bit of space that we have. And I know this applies to the entire city, so it's not just about down here, but like, I don't want to inch.
What about the thing that Jess and Rosa said where we support it as long as there's enough clear path, however, that should kill two birds with one stone, I would think.
Yeah, I guess exactly.
I strongly disagree.
Actually, but one point though is that as you're saying, the people who are purchasing things, the customers to the vendors, actually are an obstruction, right? And that how do you quantify that? Because I know that for me, when especially related to the Brooklyn Bridge, because I would go there all the time, you would have space for the vendors, then you'd have space for the tables, then you would have to allow for, you know, at least one row, but sometimes 2 rows of customers that are blocking the space in front of the tables. And the next thing you know, the whole thing is like blossoming into like 7 feet deep. And that's cut down, you know, an enormous amount of space. And when you translate that into a sidewalk consideration, if you start with, let's say, the 12 feet that you're talking about that we really don't have in FIDI, then you're talking about people being reduced to an unpassable, safely passable space. And how do you define what that is, that width that the customers are actually taking? Because that changes all the time.
That goes back to what you were saying about Greenwich, in front of BNY Mellon, which lunch hour is, it's
impossible.
It's almost impossible. And I mean, but there are these planners also, it's a big wide sidewalk but there are planners which are, I guess, obstacles. But it's just, it's, you know.
They're adding more planners and they're adding more bollards.
That's correct.
So.
I think the planters were makeshift bollards
They were.
until the bollards came through.
So why don't we, can we be a little more vague than the current therefore be it resolved and say that we oppose it because it leaves too many questions open regarding the clear path and what obstructions are? And, or ask for clarification regarding what clear path would be required and what obstructions.
Isn't that, just a good question to everybody, are there more things in here that we kind of collectively agree with the exception of 1 or 2 things as opposed to more things that we don't agree? Because that was the feeling I was getting, that there were more things than not that we agreed with. So how about putting it in the, you know, like the other way, where we agree with the exception of, as opposed to we don't, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that's a good idea too.
You know, I disagree very, very strongly.
That's right,
Yeah.
follow that.
Go ahead, Betty.
I didn't follow you.
If you basically say there are significant problems with this piece of legislation, to say that you agree with it when there are so many problems, that doesn't mean they can't be worked out, which is why it says as currently written. And the whereases point out the problems with how it's currently written, kind of the gaping holes that it's leaving, that we don't know anything about. And since we don't know anything about it, how can you support it?
Well,
I think
So I'm glad to hear that they're working on changing it. But at this point, I'd rather be the pressure to say, do change it, because these are the things we want to point out as being problematic with the current form.
I think Mitch agrees with that, and I agree with that. I think he's just saying, and I agree, that we maybe included therefore be it resolved, saying that we support the idea of allowing the increase of 6 inches where there's no obstruction.
That's what I put in the first whereas.
Okay.
Yeah. And
But
that-
very early on, it said, you know, it's just an increase to 24 inches. We don't have a problem with that.
Spirit of it, but.
Yeah.
Like saying something in a positive way, and where it seems that there was only 1 or 2 things that were more contentious, where most of those things, we agreed to. So I was just looking for more. Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that, because I think there's actually more things that are contentious than are not.
Okay.
And so what I'm afraid that we're gonna be doing is having just as many whereases, we're gonna have just as many therefore be resolved to try to nitpick every part of this. Well, no, there's many more that we are saying that we want to get clarification on, and then just obstructions alone, that's one.
Right.
That therefore be resolved, that you just described, yes, we support the 6 inches. That's another. And then there's other parts of this bill or this legislation that's not clear that we would be asking for clarity on. So I don't want to go in and try, you're a lawyer, but I don't think, many of us are not, so I don't want to go through and try to nitpick and find every little bit just to say that we agree with the legislation. Why not just say we don't agree with it, but we don't agree with it because we need more clarification.
That's why it says as written, and that sends people back to the whereases where I do the nitpicking with some of the problems, and some of them are actually using the phrases that they use to show how they conflict with each other, or where the gaping holes are, such as no definitions in some areas.
So if the consensus is that, which I'm happy to go along with, can we at least accent that at least we support the safety issue of the extra inches?
I think whereas. Yeah, that's.
That's in a whereas. It's this opposition is just to the way it's currently written. We oppose this legislation because of the way it's currently written. And all the details are in the whereases.
Okay,
I have a question.
I just wanted to, okay, yes, I'm sorry.
So pedestrian walk lane and clear path, what does that link go to?
Open up in your post article.
Hey, Zach, can you click on that link? Is that a link or is it just?
Oh.
It might be a,
Oh, there's the link.
No, it is. No, it's the DOT website. Good.
Okay.
The mobility plan.
Oh, okay, so that, which is what tells us,
What it defines less.
I don't know.
oh.
Let's find out.
Take a peek. This is a plan, is it now or is it future? When is this plan taking effect?
I have it here if you want to.
2059.
It looks like your current website.
I know, this does
It says it's-
Can't see it anyway.
You.
Yeah, no, this has been worked on by the pedestrian unit, which is now built into the public realm unit. They've been working on this for the last 3 years.
Is it being referred to in the resolution as a,
Is it even in the resolution?
yeah, there's,
It's in the therefore big deal.
yeah,
Feel free to.
pedestrian walk and clear path, lane and clear path.
Well, it defines the clear path, but it's actually in conflict with this piece of legislation.
And so would allow vendors to be in, and so this was linked to in order to define what the walk lane and clear path is?
I'm looking for the link in the first place. Is it in a whereas or is it in a footnote?
It's in the therefore be it resolved, it's in the share.
See the highlighted?
The share. We already have it on the screen.
Oh, yeah, that's just defining what they are, pedestrian lane and clear path. DOT has defined those things. Now, unfortunately, the legislation throws them out and doesn't define them, which sort of suggests they're using the DOT definitions, but they aren't really.
I think they're probably defined elsewhere in the administrative code.
Thank you.
It has to be.
I think
It's be nice to
Okay, yeah.
define this.
Regional
place.
that's the way they're defining
It's the whole
sidewalk.
plan.
So that is
It leaves a lot.
the mountain for traffic.
Which is the point of the whole thing, right? We
I hate
don't
when they put like,
leave anything.
This has
there's two separate bills. One with things that everybody, they always put, they put some things, so it's almost like you can't vote because nothing is like 100%.
The legislation.
Well, my point would be that I will remove the link and that'll solve that problem.
Yes. I mean, I get.
Wasn't that fast?
Yeah, I mean, I get the purpose of it. It just might be more specific, like if we, like the link is useful, but if we could say something more specific or like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I will remove it because it's actually the bill's definition of clear path that it would be in.
Okay,
Clear path.
okay.
So,
What do we want to do about all?
Maybe I'm nitpicking, but now that I'm reading the number of result, I just want to make sure it's specific to what we're concerned about, and simple. Can we maybe just say that we oppose the bill to the extent it allows vendors to set up in the clear path? Can we say that to the extent?
Have to go back and see it.
By the way, that link does, as you scroll further down, that's where that image comes from.
Oh.
Okay, and it defines walk lane, clear path, furnishing zone on the DOT website.
Oh, should I go there?
Right, although the law doesn't exactly follow those, which is one of the problems. They use some of the same terms, but they don't define them the same way.
Okay.
Yeah, I think just to account for all the uncertainty here, I think it would be easier to just say opposes law, local law to amend, blah, 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 to the extent it allowed vendors and their customers to be in the pedestrian walk lane and clear path.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the part that we are posing is the wording in the legislation is to permit street vendors to place their push carts as close as possible, or to have vending as close as possible to any obstruction. Because I wanted to avoid mentioning the distance from the curb, because we already said in the whereas that we don't have a problem with that.
That's Jess's comment is the general thing. I think you're both saying the same thing. Jess was just simplifying it. That he didn't mention anything about the curb or anything like that.
Right, and it's not mentioned here either.
So
I support what Jesse just said. Does anybody else feel the same? or-
can we see if we can see that as a therefore be it resolved, then we can all look at it.
I want to do this. Is there a way to just do like traction?
Well, it's just two sentences, Jess. You can just say it.
Jess, if you want to put your wording in where it's be it further resolved that.
Got, so I would just do.
To the extent that.
Why don't we, okay, something like this. Photos.
That's just like the subject that they put on it.
Okay, a local law to amend, so that's fine, to permit street vendors to visit on the sidewalk. This is all I want to do, to the extent it would allow vendors and their customers to use it. Instead of saying as currently written, because.
You know we can't see it.
Yeah.
You gotta share screen.
Oh, yes, currently written was a nice thing.
That's the only change.
Okay.
What did you change, Jess?
It's kind of,
showing you now.
Or you're not going to put it where I can see it?
Yeah.
it's just on the delay.
Can't see it.
Yeah, it's still.
No.
Can you see it?
Right here.
It's got to be on something that I have, otherwise it doesn't do me any good.
It's a shared screen.
Just say it again, Jesse. Jess.
Can you not see it, Betty?
You see this shared screen?
I'm going back to the original form and it's not appearing on my screen.
Oh, no, look at the WebEx we're sharing on the screen.
I understand, but I own the document. And I'm saying it is not appearing on the document.
It's like, this is a copy I downloaded to present it.
Yeah, I know, which is why it's your copy, but it's not mine.
I can ship it back to you after.
It's a sentence.
Can we vote on, we're looking at it, can we vote on it? And I'll remember that small change.
Just read the sentence again. Okay.
Can't you just print it on?
No, I mean, can y'all get to that later?
Yeah.
So
I mean, is that okay? Because my only concern is that we're categorizing things in the bill
That we like.
that we like and that might not even
Be contentious.
be in there. And this covers our bases and says that anything in the law that's allowing them to be in the clear path would be unacceptable to us.
Okay, can you give us 30 seconds to read it?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just slow right now.
I have a real problem with it because the bill does not define pedestrian walk lane in a way that's appropriate. I still go back to as currently written is the problem.
So may I suggest that we leave it the way Betty had it and take Jess's statement and make it a different, therefore be
I
it
agree with that.
resolved?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the second therefore be it resolved would be that, give me a second. For Jesse, you probably did it faster.
Are you,
If it was,
The idea is just to say that, to craft another, therefore be it resolved, that we would support vending generally, provided that, or to the extent that the clear path is maintained at all times.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know that you necessarily want to say that either.
Well, okay, after the maintaining, do we want to be prescriptive? Do we want to say that we want them to define the clear path to be some from sidewalk cafe obstruction to curbside obstruction, clear path. I mean, I'm not sure we can do that, or can we?
being nitpicking.
That's what I was trying to.
Avoid, right.
This seems to be the intent of what we want. I mean, maybe we could
I mean, yeah,
vote on it, like, and see where it lies.
if you guys just wanna go with that one, that's fine. I was just trying to make it, I think, a little bit easier to understand, but I wanna belabor us on 3 words.
Well, how does everybody else feel?
Well, you can see why I went the other direction, and that was saying, look, I don't want to get into the weeds with it and say that we just, as the way it's written, we disagree with it. Because it would allow things in the clear path and then avoid everything else. Otherwise, you're throwing yourself into that problem and you're going to have to keep going on and on.
I hear what Betty's saying.
How about you guys? You with Betty or with Jess?
Jesse, I agree with the way you wrote it, to clarify what the real contentious point is. My difference would only be, instead of saying pedestrian walk lane and clear path, I would say the pedestrian right of way, just to make it more general, instead of just saying it's not just for a walk lane, but for other uses by the public, they have a right of way
Oh,
to
Sandy,
use
yeah,
it.
sure.
But in general, I agree.
How about you?
The only thing that I'm kind of concerned about with what you're proposing is that it just opens it up and it's like clearly so organic and,
Yeah.
it all, there's just this vagueness about it.
That is, I mean, that
And
is
like-
kind of what I was trying to do, because we don't want this bill to be lit on fire, I don't think. We want it to be
Right.
clarified. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
I mean,
Maybe Betty does want to.
And what, I think Betty's right, and that the way it's written, it's just, it doesn't clarify those things. And we all know that these situations are all organic and unique when it comes to vendors and, the sort of traffic that shows up there and like, I mean, I mean,
What if we left it as currently written and the second one is the request for clarification,
yes.
right? So we don't get into the weeds, right? And we say that we oppose it as currently written and we ask that clarification on calculations of obstructions and impact on clear path.
Mhm.
Carrie, is what you're really asking that they rewrite, what they amend the bill so that it addresses the issues brought up?
Yes.
Yeah.
We want them.
So, yeah, what you're really doing then is supporting exactly what Mohammed is working on now, which is, and that would be in the therefore be it further resolved.
What did you say? Should we do something like CB1 welcome?
Or seeks,
Okay.
or encourages,
Encourage.
implores,
Begs.
begs.
When you said implores, I.
Anyway.
Well, actually, it would be called Bill B, it's amended when they make changes. That's just the words, because it would have to go to the next version, it would have to go to the A version.
Maybe not
This can change,
continue.
this can change. Considerations.
Sort of
You don't have to
simple.
say that, but the fact is that they amend.
Encourage amendments to clarify,
the
That's true.
the impact on clear pathing.
impact on clear path.
Well, there are lots of issues.
There's
That's
lots of
hardly the
things
only
that are
one.
brought up in the whereases.
Yeah, to clarify, how about this? This is a nice trick.
Among other things. Oh, yes.
Et cetera. Can you just put a 2 in between the 0 and 4? It's gonna drive me nuts.
Yeah.
What about just clarify the bill to address our concerns?
Oh, excellent.
See.
Okay.
Will
To,
Clarify the bill to address our concerns.
And then they can just take it from the whereases.
say the concerns noted above.
Yeah,
Are we allowed to say that?
why not? We can say whatever we want.
That's true.
Or noted in the resolution. Yeah.
I think this is a good compromise, folks.
Stuff we don't know.
Oh,
All right, we got there. Are we ready to vote on it?
Call the question?
Second?
Third.
Neat.
My affirmation.
Onwards.
All opposed? Abstentions? Refusals? Killing it, guys.
And now we got no one.
One
Here it
more.
goes.
Ready?
Yeah, and this one is kind of from the same, so there won't be, a lot of the work is already done for this one. Also, keep in mind, oh, Detta, you're here, and if you want to move Detta from panel, sorry. Thank you for joining, Detta. I'm glad you're here. Didn't see you before. If you want to go on to, back to the slide, and I think we need to then go to that resolution draft. Because I don't think there are any slides that particularly deal with this one. And I think it was just December 3rd when the DOT rule changed that banned vendors from the Brooklyn Bridge. Again, 'cause yeah, this is what this legislation would do, and you can't read it very well, so I've typed it down on the bottom. But it would prohibit general and mobile vending on a bridge approach, which already is not allowed according to the rule that just came in on December 3rd. It would restrict general and mobile food vending on elevated pedestrian walkways with less than 16-foot clear pedestrian path. It would prohibit general and mobile food vending within 20 feet of another push cart. So they do a certain sighting element in it as well. Next, and I think it's going to the draft. Yeah. Because I took a lot of the details from, again, the testimony given to City Council.
Wait, do you actually have new business?
I have.
You want me to pull up the resolution?
Yes, please.
How it works. It's real nervous. It's just like, there's a thing that's going through that I'm curious. If we want to
Yeah.
talk about it later, like next time.
Okay, so the first one, we just went through what it is. Again, it was January 3rd when the Department of Transportation rule change came through, so I was right about that. The third one, yeah, the public comments, they were from tour guides, keep them in mind, as well as local residents, pedestrians, commuters, all kinds of people about the Brooklyn Bridge. Go to the next one, that were in opposition. It was overwhelmingly in opposition, which is why the rule change went through. Local residents have long complained about vending on the Brooklyn Bridge because it is so out of control. And the things were about how it affected the crowd, may worsen the crowding, the trash, the loss of views that resulted from it, not the vending per se. Again, the 2023 Downtown Alliance made 2,900 food and general vending violation complaints into 311. And that was despite having the 12-foot clear path. So the fact is they're not complying with it. So enforcement out on the bridge is a problem. As far as numbers, 34,000 pedestrians crossed the Brooklyn Bridge on a typical fall weekend in 2022, which is a doubling from the number in 2021, which is pretty dramatic.
That's because there was a pandemic going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you had the people who were actually climbing over the fencing to go down to the bike lane, which I know, Cody, you had noticed, but this was being posted and you can find it. People were actually doing these things. The crowding had ramifications. The Brooklyn Bridge is a critical link in and out of Manhattan, has high numbers of pedestrians, especially at certain times. And during emergencies and protests, this was from the NYPD testimony. So they want safe egress of pedestrians being crucial. The NYPD did close the Brooklyn Bridge to pedestrians on December 29th, and this was not the first time because the crowding became so dense. They were concerned about pedestrian crush situations. We're not talking about average numbers of large pedestrians, we're talking about ridiculously large for this space. And so the NYPD has designated as a high threat counterterrorism target. Next one down. Still NYPD. Interesting, if you want to know what the complaints were to the NYPD for their 911 calls, I was amazed by this because they had 6,340 service calls on the Brooklyn Bridge over this 5-year period. 1,301 were for ambulance responses. Don't know how they do that. 130 jumpers, 230 were for crimes in progress, 9 for explosive devices or threats, 68 for hazardous materials, and 69 for fires. Yeah, it's surprising, isn't it? There is a concern because it is a reintroduction, and this is actually introduced by Gail Brewer, was this piece of legislation. And so I think really as an attempt to reintroduce vending for a small number of vendors, because again, they're not letting them all back, and to cite them so they will be unobstructive. But this is where you have to have what you believe in. The lack of continuous enforcement on the bridge, the large number of 911 complaints about vendors, and the growing number of pedestrians crowding the bridge make the return of any vendors impractical, unsafe, and unwelcome, because it's unenforceable. But acknowledges vending is an important role in New York City, but. So Jess, I turn it back to you for comments.
I'm just, is that what you're proposing we say, or is that Gail Brewer's thing where she's saying that she doesn't want any vendors on the bridge because of that?
No, she proposed this legislation.
Okay, so she's proposing no vendors on the,
No.
Moving, letting them back.
letting some, okay,
Like,
okay.
like just
Limited.
bigger, like more space and.
Right, right,
Yeah.
okay, so now I know what I want to, okay.
We had limited vendors previously, sorry.
I fully support this resolution, because I think the reintroduction of vendors on the Brooklyn Bridge would be, opening that can of worms again. And it's like the Brooklyn Bridge is a testament to human ingenuity. It should, remain free of vendors. I mean, and as far as the crowding goes, I do believe it got more crowded on the pedestrian pathway because I used to bike. You used to ride your bike on the pedestrian pathway and you could get through. It was dangerous, but you could get through. I mean, now that would be, you can't even walk through if you're pushing your bike across.
They have a bike lane though, right?
No, now we have a bike lane.
That's part of the
Yeah.
point.
It's
It's
just-
it's safer to walk there now, so people go and walk there.
The thing is, there was, like, once again, I feel there's those two extremes, either letting, vendors on. I think I read something in the paper where, like, there were some vendors that had been there for years and they had licenses, and they were complaining about all the influx of all because of no enforcement,
Yeah.
therefore enforcement. So I personally would be for this if it's because, they're with licenses and people making a living, but with reason, not like, there's always gonna be some some worms.
Sure, but
All or nothing,
to be clear, the original vendors were at the foot of the bridge. I mean, those
Okay.
vendors you're talking about. They were, sold cold water and, they.
Well, this would be all kind of all the way
On
through.
the concrete part.
And the issue is like on the bridge.
It was on the bridge.
I have
The
a video
people
of
on
it if you're.
And in fact,
I've seen it.
some of them had electrical generators and things like that, but.
I walked across the
Taxes
whole
the
bridge.
suspension,
Got video.
as I understand it. What actually taxes the
So what
suspension.
about like some of the way maybe it used to be a while ago where there was just some vendors on, like, not throughout the whole bridge, but a couple,
Like in City Hall Park.
is that what this is?
Yeah.
Bill is saying?
I think
No, it's actually saying the opposite. I think it's saying like no vendors at the foot, am I, if I'm
No,
right?
this is talking about the approach to the bridge, I believe. So they're not talking about adding or letting vendors come back on the bridge.
Yeah,
but
they
in
are.
that approach.
Yeah, they are.
I guess also
On
that,
the bridge.
but also
Yes.
the approach is where we experience the most congestion that
Right.
we, can see from
I mean,
far away.
On the bridge was pretty bad.
on the bridge was
Yeah.
horrible.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was like, it's more,
It just seems to me just some some type of I always hate that all or nothing thing, like, because there are some good people and there is a lot of bad
I
people.
think the compromise, like just
Yeah.
policy wise, is that they create more licenses and put them elsewhere in places where they're more.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the way to do it. And I think,
I mean, because there's so many, it's a tourist destination, then it's like, you know, taxis will be running around Broadway in Midtown because they're not gonna be running up in, you know,
I think this is where.
Hill Parkway where I grew up.
Tries to, that's what it's trying to say, I think.
I mean,
You know,
the other thing is,
identify safer locations. Can I just say one thing though?
Yeah.
I think we need to remove the word unwelcome. I think that's just kind of.
Yeah.
that's the,
I think,
I agree.
Sorry, you can come.
I third
I
that.
agree with that.
Oh,
I think the thing I've learned in the short time I've been on this board is that like enforcement is the biggest issue.
Right.
So if you give them a little bit, it's not gonna be enforced, and that's how we got to the place where it was. So unfortunately, we have to go with, don't come back on the bridge, because it's putting a lot of people into danger and it's not supporting.
I mean, I respect that. I just feel bad for some of the ones that have been there for the life of it.
We're saying let's move them somewhere else, so. And that somewhere else is literally right now across the street, because that's where I'm about to pass by. right now, so.
That's real congestion, yeah,
Harry, then.
okay.
So I just need some clarification, Betty, on the therefore be it resolved, because it says we oppose the legislation. The legislation says that they can't be on the approach, on the walkway. So what is it that is open? What is it that the law is leaving open with regards to the Brooklyn Bridge?
Right now it is 0. What does this bill allow? If you go back to one of the early, I have to, 1 second.
Like that slide that you presented where it summarized the bill, doesn't that
Yes.
preclude vending on the Brooklyn Bridge entirely?
No.
So what's left open?
Nothing.
Let me go back to what it says. There's all the
Not
square
on a bridge
footage.
approach, not on an elevated pedestrian walkway with less than 16 feet. Oh, I see.
Correct.
So if you've got more than 16 feet, you could have carts.
Technically, on those parts of the bridge, there could be vendors, as if you believe it's enforceable and they're not going to go anywhere else. And there has to be, what's it, 20 feet between them?
Yes. Yes.
20 feet.
So
Okay, now I
there
understand.
are
So
these
they've
two
opened-
citing kinds of things that are in the bill. But they're,
Okay,
how are they
thank
going to
you.
enforce them?
Right, no, I'm clear now. I missed the 16-foot,
Yeah.
that they were trying to wiggle in room. So I'm happy to call a question.
How, I mean, how is it that we're asking, how are they going to enforce this when we just talked about the other vending intro? Like why is it that we're saying that about this and not about the sidewalk?
They're on a bridge.
For me, the difference is that this is a particularly large problem and was becoming a safety concern, and it's like, we already know what's gonna happen. Like, we've
Right.
already
Yeah.
experienced
I mean,
it.
for years it was fine. Why is it different now?
Actually, it wasn't.
It wasn't.
There have been complaints for years too, but
Yeah.
it really escalated over COVID, the number of vendors. That's what the complaints were, that if you go to the testimony, that even the vendors were complaining about all the others that have came out of nowhere and to them in a very short
Yeah.
period of time.
So
Yeah, I
then,
mean, I agree. It's like totally, it was bonkers on the bridge and I have video of the whole thing.
It was,
And it
it was trash.
it was
like,
loud.
loud.
Music.
I heard
It was,
New York.
yeah, but
Cody, you have something? All right, finish what you're saying, then Cody, then Rosa, and then.
One last thing, okay, real quick, is there maybe, I don't know, there should be language that says that, you know, tourists and residents have the right to unobstructed, you know, unvarnished views of this, you know, this engineering feat, you know, something positive, you know, because, okay, forget it. It was just a thought, you know.
Rosa?
Oh, thank you very much. I just cannot underline more clearly that I'm opposed to vending on the bridge whatsoever. It fluctuates in width along its length. And so if you allow for any vending in what are theoretically the wider parts, the reality is that it's going to spread into the much narrower parts. And as we already discussed with the previous bill, the width that ends up being taken up by the vendors, the tables, and then the customers is just too large. And then one other issue related to the Brooklyn Bridge specifically is that because it is a tourist destination, the tourists themselves, they're not even buying anything, but they're photographing themselves constantly. And so there's this just stop of movement and traffic on the bridge. And that when it gets so narrow, especially, which happens to, for some reason, be the spot that everybody wants to take photos, it gets incredibly dangerous. And that's, you know, and then also the issues that you pointed out, which is like the trash generation, the noise pollution, the actual generators that are on the bridge, everything. It's just, it's insane. And so I'm opposed to any vending going on there, period. And you're right, you know, there's a vending opportunity at City Hall Park across the way, large plaza. For some reason, they're not going there. So it's really weird. And then we can't forget, of course, the porta potties that happened. Which I don't know if you guys were aware of that, but there were actually porta potties that were there at the base of the bridge for the longest time before they finally got removed. I mean, it's crazy what it can become if you give an inch. Thank you.
Yeah,
for my rant.
It didn't narrow it to just the Brooklyn Bridge.
That's correct.
So that's my first fault. It should just be, if this is for the Brooklyn Bridge, it should say it's only for the Brooklyn Bridge, because I don't want it to be used for other bridges throughout the city.
Don't want what to be used for other bridges?
The criteria they have.
Our bridges on some, most of the other bridges.
Are you talking about our resolution?
No, the bill.
I know that the bill applied to everything,
Yeah.
and you want to just apply.
I mean, if that's what the point is, it should state only the Brooklyn Bridge, because that's what it seems to be the real reason for it.
I don't think, I haven't seen any other vendors on any of the other bridges because of the way of the, you know, people are not walking across the George Washington Bridge or the Williamsburg Bridge. I mean, not that I disagree with you, I agree with you.
There are a lot of bridges, like we don't.
Right, I haven't seen any of the vendors doing.
It's a big one, you're thinking of just a big one, but there might be small, I don't know.
Yeah, like a bridge that goes over a highway, that could be deemed a bridge. I mean, it is a bridge, but.
Like near Yankee
I
Stadium.
haven't seen one.
I don't know. Wait, that's a good point.
So that,
No, that's a good.
I mean, technically, it's a good point.
But this board only cares about restricting the Brooklyn Bridge. We don't want to
Right.
make judgments on another bridge where maybe they actually
That's
like
what he said, yeah.
vending,
Yeah.
right? So the
Yeah, I mean,
resolution
I don't disagree with you.
Right.
I just didn't know there was vendors on other bridges.
So then that's my concern. It's too, it could be used anywhere. Because if the goal is for the Brooklyn Bridge, that's fine.
Well, I think the goal of the legislation is for all bridges.
Mm.
And our resolution, the goal is to restrict the Brooklyn.
And you're saying you should make it clear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
That it's.
And you know, I think why it might be better for some of the residents to have more of the vendors in City Hall Park. I mean, they're not gonna sell it, I mean, they're gonna go where people are selling. People, I would say 90% of the people walking across the Brooklyn Bridge are not also going through the City Hall Park, so I don't disagree with you, but I'm just saying, that's just, I think, an economic reality.
Oh, there's a reason they go there, you're right. There's a reason they go to the bridge, you're right.
So before, one thing, so the one thing that the therefore be it resolved doesn't do is it doesn't talk about that 16-foot, like, because the way it's worded, it says it prohibits. And then it says, it says it prohibits the vending across the board. It doesn't acknowledge the fact that it leaves open the opportunity for some portion of the bridge, right?
Yeah.
So I think we have to add in the actual verbiage of what it does allow and why that's a concern. The way it's worded here, it just says it prohibits vending. You know, it should just say what it does allow, and
Yeah.
that's what is a concern.
You're right, it says it restricts all general vending. That's-
Right, and so that, it doesn't restrict all general vending because it allows vending as long as they're 20 feet apart and they leave a clear path of 16 feet.
Should we say that we oppose passage of whatever as it relates to the Brooklyn Bridge?
Yeah,
As it applies to the Brooklyn Bridge?
Yeah.
Betty, thoughts?
Because essentially we're saying we don't want any kind of bending anywhere near.
We should
Right.
make that.
Yeah, no, I understand. I don't think you can say as it applies to the Brooklyn Bridge, because otherwise you're making them guess what things apply and what don't apply. What do you think? But we do have to restrict ourselves to the Brooklyn Bridge, but we just can't use that particular wording. And this wording that you highlighted, which I don't mind getting rid of, but in fact, that is the summary for the bill. I lifted it completely from them.
Yeah.
Right, so maybe we just need to add to the extent that it would
I didn't want
permit.
us to be-
I like your to the extent, Jazz.
To the extent it would permit.
No,
any-
either you pass or you don't pass. You don't pass to an extent.
You know, I think you,
Extent that voted down twice.
I think you leave, you can set that language, you can undo, and then at the end of it, say, to the extent that it would allow.
Or just say, the opposed passage because.
We don't want.
Right.
Right. Because it allows, right, right, because it allows
It would
vending.
permit Vending on the Brooklyn Bridge.
Okay, that's fine. So, do you think we can actually?
I would just bottle the water.
Oh, wait, no, undo that.
Bottle the water.
I'm trying to undo my deletion. Moment.
We can get it across the street.
Well, you can, or get rid of that and just put in the word because and go on with what Carrie was saying.
Because we hate it.
Okay. so-
Right, because it opened, yeah, it would open the door to vending.
Well, well,
Anywhere on the Brooklyn
Then they'd
Bridge.
be restricted, like, you have to have a
And
license.
around.
they're already there.
Oh, you're right.
The cards. I mean,
It will say.
Yeah.
I want to say, the big apples make it bad for the good apples.
Sounds.
Yeah, well, we care about.
Yeah, let's make it clear and powerful statement that we don't want vending on the Brooklyn Bridge.
exactly.
Yeah.
That is clear and powerful.
And we don't. Vending. That's what it says at the end, Brooklyn Bridge, is not
Yeah.
appropriate.
That's perfect.
why don't you just put in, because it would reintroduce vending to the Brooklyn Bridge. I mean, the whole point is we just got rid of it. Now they're gonna reintroduce it.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah, I think that's
Right.
good.
Okay.
Well, because the vendors that have been there for years, that were licensed, complained about their livelihood, so.
Well, yeah, I know, Mitch, but the decision was, they were never legally allowed, but everyone admitted that it was
really?
vague, which is why the DOT stated that they were introducing the rule was to make it explicit that it was not allowed.
So it was never legally allowed, better than I
No,
know.
some of it was, some of them did have licenses.
That's what I
They
thought.
may have licenses, but the licenses were they for the Brooklyn Bridge specifically?
Okay.
I don't know about
Okay.
this specifically, I just know that they had been there for years and they had licenses.
Well, I understand, and I'm gonna assume from that the DOT was saying they wanted to make it explicit, it was implicit, and they didn't bother to enforce it because it wasn't a big enough problem, and then it became a problem.
Okay.
Do we, is
Okay,
that what
else?
you think about it? Is that how the DOT thought about it? Was that it wasn't a problem, so even if they weren't necessarily permitted for that area?
To the extent that.
Like veterans might have been permitted.
Understanding, I don't think vendor license apply to a specific location.
They don't.
Yeah. But I'm not certain who would have been enforcing previously, because NYPD had previously enforced vendor issues, so I don't think DOT was ever enforcing
No.
vendors that were operating on the bridge with licenses or not. Well, and the Brooklyn Bridge is covered by the Brooklyn Police, is that correct? So they don't have to walk all the way across the bridge to enforce anything, even all the way over close to where we are.
Which they're not gonna do, yeah.
Okay. I mean,
Okay.
all right, I'll call it.
Second.
Sweet.
To the extent that.
Except does great work. I do know.
Among other things, it's great.
You have a little window.
Abstentions, silence during voting, recusals. 4 unanimous resolutions.
Hey Betty,
Yes,
I have a request for us to talk about something next time. Is that a now thing or is that some other type? Do we bring that up? What is it?
I'm sorry.
So there's a, it's INT 0132-2024. And it's a local law to amend the administrative code of the city of New York in relation to requiring moped retailers to provide ownership information at point of sale. Bill would require Department of Consumer and Worker Protection in coordination with the Department of Transportation to develop and distribute materials related to the operation of mopeds. It would also require moped retailers to distribute such materials at point of sale. So these mopeds should have a license plate. And they're being sold without informing the buyer that they need to have the license plate eventually. So this would tell the retailers to tell the customer that they need to get a license plate. They need license plates because there's no way to enforce when they break the law if they're not identifiable.
Right.
what's the number again?
Oh, INT 0132-2024.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yes, because I will look at that one. In fact, there's another one that is going on at the state level. Because only at the state level, I think they can mandate that you can't leave without a license plate, which is what happens with cars. You can't buy a new car and leave.
Right.
Yeah, like motorcycle, like full motorcycles, like the big ones, that aren't mopeds, which are limited, speed. You have to get a license plate at the dealer.
Yeah, no, it's just mopeds that escape that. But I understand that it's state law that has to change to require that you have a license plate to leave the dealer. So the New York City one may be just informing them that they need to get one.
Yeah, that's true, because the New York City one can't do anything other than just inform.
So no, we can certainly take a look at that. And I will look into the state one too and see where they are. I don't think they're ready yet for a vote, so it may be a little bit early for them. It may still be in committee.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
New and updates, not new.
Yeah, I'll move very quickly through these. And Brendan, you can leave at any time. This was just, yeah, see, they have changed and clarified the TMRB. The congestion pricing is going to have a disability exemption, and it can be disability plate. It's not exactly disability plates. They have, if you go to the next one, it'll clarify exactly, they've changed the rule. You should have listened to me. But they won't grant exemptions for any car with a disability license plate after all. Yay. A new policy is going to be individual disability exemption plan. And those of us who have Access-a-Ride, we can all name a license plate that we want to have listed to be exempt from congestion pricing. Also, anybody who has one of those little hangy things from the New York City DOT will also qualify to be able to name a particular vehicle, which will sweep up things such as when you have a child or that has a disability. It doesn't have to just be the owner of the vehicle that has the disability. This will widen it, but also get rid of the problems of the other states where there may not be a reciprocal agreement to communicate with the New York DMV, as well as Sam Schwartz had brought up all the illegal plates phony plates that you can buy online. So this is actually being recommended and it's going to happen. Next, but I'm not gonna name anybody's car to give them free, so don't call me. Could congestion pricing, to let you know, Boston is also looking into congestion pricing so that we won't feel so alone. Next. Dublin is doing it a different way. They're just banning any driving of vehicles in the city center. Actually, a different approach.
How big is Dublin?
I don't know.
It's apples and meat, it's not apples to, I don't, anyway, I'm sorry, continue.
Although it's a general problem and the different solutions coming out there. There is movement at the state looking to boost bus service that's free. Remember, there's one in each of the boroughs. There's now some legislation being looked at early in the state that's looking to increase that number to more like, I think it's 3 or 4 per borough. And there are problems with it, but nevertheless. Next. As people get interested in this, if you want to have the committee look into it over time, let me know. But this is, again, getting more. They're looking for $90 million to help fund this particular initiative.
What?
I don't know that it'll go anywhere, but nevertheless, it's out there. Next. Oh, yeah, and there's been a study that came out saying that subsidizing transit is actually, which this previous bill would do, is actually more efficient. People who say it's wasteful, but I don't know. They're going to use this as support for the legislation in Albany. Next. We'll see. Oh, yeah, and so if you want to know what they're going to lose in terms of fund, 30 to 35% of bus customers currently aren't paying fare anyway. So fare evasion is a crackdown that's going on, and I'll have Eric take this on next month. It's too late tonight. But in fact, the problem of Omni, you don't get a receipt, and they're now cracking down on if you have a receipt or not, if you get in through the back door or others, and Omni doesn't provide you with a receipt and the problems that have occurred due to that. So watch out. Next.
Is there any updates about all the experts, like former Governor Cuomo and other people that I've read about a lot, where they were for congestion pricing, and now because of the economic situation of the pandemic, they're having second thoughts about it? It would be nice, Betty, if maybe
it's political.
1% of some of these, that's not political. There was reasons that had nothing to do with politics, where there was other sides, and I respect the heck out of you, but just it would seem that it would be nice to have at least 1% or 2% of, because I think the general board kind of goes more to that than 100% of things to push your agenda, as opposed to, I read things in the papers all the time of not just politicians, where some people are rethinking things because of the climate that we're in. It would just be nice to have like 1% of the other side.
Yeah, and Mitch, my point of dismissing it at this point is, if you listen to Jenna Lieber, he talks about, this is going to happen, get over it. If that's the MTA's response to it at this point, I don't want to consume a lot of time on something that's going to happen. Let's let it happen and we'll deal with it later.
Like Governor Cuomo, the people that were starting that were totally promoting the congestion pricing, and now some of these experts in it that promoted it, now they are having a change of heart.
I understand, but it's too late. The bill is already passed.
Just bringing people here to talk about why they're angry about congestion pricing.
I didn't say my point. I'm just saying it seems that there's it's like, we're almost like becoming like a transportation alternatives like committee, as opposed to like a general thing where there's two different sides to.
We don't talk about congestion pricing because me and Betty like it. We talk about congestion pricing because it's happening and they're asking for recommendations and for comment. If there's an issue.
Unless some of the lawsuits stop it for a while.
Okay. Yeah,
right, then it's an issue to opine on, but right now there's nothing to opine on.
Okay.
Yeah, otherwise I'm against taxes as well, but there's no point opining because they happen anyway. Yeah, kind of interesting. And the Green Wave Initiative, now the TLC is saying no more for Haraya vehicles, including those that are electric. So they've been saturated and got hit with a whole lot more applications than they anticipated. But I know Cody anticipated them. Next. Uber and Lyft drivers are due for a raise, just so you know. So it won't just be the congestion pricing fee that's added to them in the near future, but also raises coming on. Something to look forward to. Next.
Yeah. Take the subway to the airport now.
They're crazy.
They do that, except when the subway's not running in the middle of the night. And I got a 6 o'clock flight.
Good movement. All we can do is cheer for it. Maybe FedEx, this is in London, but maybe they will start bringing some of these cargo bikes into New York City as well versus their really big trucks they currently use. So we'll see. Next. GM is developing a fleet of hydrogen-powered medium-duty trucks. So you know what the Federal Department of Energy is working on. You may start to get to see them. Next, more confusion for us. Feds also have a program for school buses, electric school buses. And as you can see, New York City just got $8 million to purchase 25 electric buses. So every little bit helps. Lithium-ion batteries, yes, they're a concern in vehicles too. But what was interesting is this is an approach for putting out an extinguisher that'll put out these fires. But in fact, part of this too was that actually electric vehicles have been igniting less often than gas-powered vehicles do. So if you're not concerned about gas combustion engines going on fire in a car accident, then don't be too worried about the batteries because they're even less likely.
And I can have people come in to talk to us about batteries. Yeah.
I'd like to hear more about batteries and what should be done.
So,
Yeah. I mean, people don't have their cars in apartments, but they're storing lithium batteries in apartments. I mean,
large scale lithium batteries with like not great chargers.
Well, keep in mind, most of the fires and things have really been from non-certified batteries, and they've been doing a lot of legislation to try to remove them, which is very welcome. But it's gonna be a little bit slow to get it to work its way all the way through, and some of the legislation is still pending, but we'll see. Yeah, for those, and this again doesn't involve New York City, but the number of Super Cruise hands-free driving routes in North America is going up. For those of you who like to explore the wider country, you're going to see more and more vehicles without drivers in them. Next. Safety commitment from the city vehicle fleet. And I think the next one actually this was an executive order that came through with 6 360-degree cameras and high visibility design, so now contractors as well as vehicles in New York City have to have city-owned. We're talking about those. We'll have cameras, and hopefully that will eliminate some of the accidents that occur with those vehicles. Hope. Next. Yeah, and sorry, Cody, but the New Jersey bill to require all e-bike riders to register and get insurance. Yeah, and it hasn't been passed yet. This is pending, but nevertheless, it's out there. And next, because the problem is, and it's not just them.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah, because then you have an enforcement mechanism.
It doesn't really, they tried it in others, they tried it in Toronto, we talked about this.
What's wrong? I missed it, sorry.
Well, the problem with this one in particular is no insurance company sells it.
Anywhere in the world.
Well, they didn't sell car insurance until cars were.
Well, perhaps, but the fact is, for somebody who is on an e-bike and has to have this proof of insurance, I can see why they're sweating it a bit and saying, where am I going to get it?
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
Like car drivers all have insurance.
And it's sold by insurance companies.
Yeah.
Right, but if it became the law, then insurance companies would look for a way.
They would offer the product. Insurance companies would.
Well, and they might, but nevertheless, this is just reporting what it is. It's not advocating one way or the other. This is what's out there in the news.
Okay, yeah, I mean, if I get hit by an e-bike, I would want them to pay for my medical bills.
Actually, you can go after them for homeowner and other insurance. They still have liability. That doesn't mean only bike insurance could do it.
Have homeowners insurance, then we would need to make sure they had homeowners insurance. And how many people in New York City own a home?
Do you know how many people that well, actually, my condo, I can't carry homeowners insurance. It's not limited to just houses.
I don't know if renter's insurance would cover it.
It's just different.
It does. My father was insurance.
E-bikes, they don't have homeowner insurance. I mean, let's be real.
Do we want to require people to have to buy insurance?
I mean, it's
It's
ridiculous.
not a bike, it's an e-bike. They can go 25 miles an hour.
To the extent
They have
that.
insurance.
To the extent that they could go and speed and cause physical
To the
damage.
extent that say 25.
Exactly.
Okay, well, don't get all outraged, but I'll make you even angrier when I admit that most of the people that I treated that were hit by vehicles of different sorts, they didn't have insurance either. So they ended up I found out because there was no coverage for their medical care.
So that makes it.
You're right there.
It was in the hospital.
That's,
No, it's just the problem is out there bigger than you think it is. It's a problem. Again, the politicians, more of them are out there looking to get more of the city bike docks electrified so they don't have to switch out the batteries. For those who are tired of finding the e-bikes with pedal assist the batteries are dead or low.
Yeah.
So some movement there. Next.
What?
Yeah, for those, I know Alice is concerned about this, but some of the docks that are out there now, some of the charging stations that are out there for deliveristas. This is one. There are 3 different versions. You can go get your battery charged. These are 2 other options, and these are lockers.
Sorry, I didn't hear your
I'm
question.
sorry.
Do they cost money?
Well, it's funny because people are assuming they don't, but obviously they do, because these are businesses. In these lockers, in fact, you become a subscriber and you turn one battery in and pick up a charged one. So it's the company that actually owns the batteries.
So you have a subscription to
But Tammy has her hand up if she wants to speak. She probably has some information.
Yeah, these are actually awesome. You basically pay a down payment for a monthly fee and you just get to go and recharge your batteries. Over the cost of the lifetime of the battery, it is actually less expensive than buying a battery and just recharging it on your own. Gail Brewer presented it and it was presented over in Brooklyn. It's a fantastic program. So in the long run, it saves money because once the battery becomes as we all know with our phones, eventually the batteries do, kind of crap out on you. They just replace it for you. It's an awesome program.
Is by default. If they can get power to the bicycle stations, I don't see why they couldn't get power to our future toilets.
Amen, Mimi. Amen.
Just like electricity, I love that.
I'll just say that this site was selected because it's located on a plaza that already had an electric hookup, so we weren't adding electrification to install this.
So right now it's only at one location.
So this is the first location. There's going to be one in Brooklyn. This one you're seeing is on the Bowery and East Sixth Street, and there's going to be another one at Sixth and Deland.
Oh, cool. There's power there?
There is a power source there. Yeah.
We can just pull from the utility too.
Just take it and screw it.
Yeah.
We try not to screw the land.
Is that free infrastructure as we used to do in the neighborhood?
This reminds me of what,
Yeah, I'm not certain.
what's his name? Joel?
I can't speak.
Joel was talking
But
about
also this is a 6-month.
the street vendors and their
We're
generators,
looking
like
for
providing some sort of
intense
electrical
infrastructure
service.
Anything else, Ben? We're done?
Yeah, no, yes, meeting adjourned, but this is, so the bridge kind of from Easter here to, what this originally said for this doughboy was, he has risen and then he has not. So happy Easter, happy Passover.
You too, Betty, thank you.
What?
Betty, you may be in charge of my slides at the full board. This one's pretty good. I love this.
Hey, you can borrow it if you want.
Hands down.
All right, there's a break in the rain for those who are in.
Yay!
Babies, babies,